How would my review of Spectre, directed by Sam Mendes, an action flick that centers on 007's rogue quest to unveil the culprit that links all of Bond's past terrorist encounters to an organization known as Spectre. So about a month ago, I went out and bought the Daniel Craig collection, which I have to say sounds like a cologne versus a Blu-ray set, but it comes with Casino Royale, it also comes with Skyfall, and it comes with this very, very poorly designed coaster. It says Quantum of Solace. If you can see that, it's got like a little hole in it. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking, but, you know, whatever. Until very recently, the only Bond films that I've seen from start to finish were To Die Another Day and Skyfall. So yes, in other words, it was only until just a month ago I saw Casino Royale for the very first time, and I have to say that it is just as great as everyone says it is. It is extraordinary. And then you have something like Quantum of Solace. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I guess in comparison to something like Casino Royale, it might as well be. It's a boring movie. It feels like it's 3 hours, yet the film is not even 2. And furthermore, the only good elements that are present in Quantum of Solace are the elements that were rehashed from Casino Royale. And then there's Sam Mendes' Skyfall, and out of all the Bond films that I've seen, that would be my favorite. To me, it was a much more intimate take on the character, and you can say the same for Casino Royale easily, but I think it might just be even more so here, and I think overall, it's just probably the most artistic Bond film. So naturally, I was excited to see how Sam Mendes was going to follow up to the greatness that is Skyfall, and the introduction to this film is absolutely phenomenal. In fact, it's probably my favorite set piece in any of the James Bond films that I've seen. And maybe in terms of stunt choreography and overall spectacle, it doesn't have anything on the first set piece in Casino Royale, you know, the chase sequence. But what I think stands out about this particular sequence in Spectre is the filmmaking. The film opens up to this very extensive shot in Mexico City while James Bond is quietly pursuing this guy during a Day of the Day parade. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that splicing of digital effects had to have been present here because I think that would have been kind of difficult to do, but regardless, it's well choreographed and it's incredibly well filmed. And I think the opening sequence does an absolutely brilliant job at immersing you into the film and setting up a sense of suspense. I also adore the music during the sequence, and it all ends with Bond hitching a ride on a helicopter, which is as great or greater than it sounds. And then we get to the opening credits and the Sam Smith song, and just like everyone else, I was underwhelmed by it as well. But after listening to it a couple of times, it's grown on me, and I think it's a decent song. It's no Diamonds Are Forever, it's no Goldfinger, it's no Skyfall, but, you know, it's okay. And going into the film, I was really interested in seeing how exactly Sam Smith's song was going to work with the opening credits for Spectre, because I absolutely adore the opening credit sequence for Skyfall, and I also love the song as well. I think they fit perfectly. It's a perfect opening title sequence. As for this one, it's not so much. Honestly, I could probably base an entire review around the opening credit sequence. I'm not going to. But above all, I think it's bad. It features a lot of tentacles and shit flying everywhere. It's like watching Hentai, but with James Bond. And if anything, the credit sequence is actually an insult to the Sam Smith song. So there you go. So after being exposed to the James Bond hentai, which I have to say is a sight to see, the rest of the film begins. I think, for the most part, it's good, but with some huge missteps here and there. One of the issues that I have with this film is that it seems to be suffering from an identity crisis. The film tries to give you that James Bond that you see in Skyfall, yet at the same time it tries to give you a James Bond that you see that predates Casino Royale. You have James Bond the man, somebody's son, somebody who has his feet almost planted on the ground, yet at the same time you also have the James Bond that is a womanizer, somebody who has his drink shaked, not stirred, and you also have the James Bond who's able to obtain a plane out of nowhere during a chase sequence, gives the plane absolute hell, literally crashes into and skids it through a freaking cabin, does not explode on impact, but when it hits a car, it just blows up. There are times in this movie where it gets straight up stupid, and that might be fine for people who are fans of the original Bond films, because those films are not exactly the most grounded. But if you're somebody who is a fan of Casino Royale, and if you're a fan of Skyfall, then this will be a bit of a letdown, especially considering that this actually takes place in that universe. Spectre is a very, very awkward film that has some good things to even great things in it. But I think really the big problem here is that it suffers from a script that it's just not very good. One of the things that I found interesting about this film before I saw it was the addition of Léa Seydoux, who was in Blue is the Warmest Color, one of my favorite films of 2013. And in that film, she gave a fantastic performance. So naturally, I was interested in seeing how she was going to be utilized in this film. Because basing her off of her appearance as well as projects that she has been involved in the past, such as Blue is the Warmest Color, she doesn't fit the mold of the typical Bond girl. She's far from that. And for the first quarter of her presence in this film, I think she's utilized well because she plays a character who is very smart, very independent, doesn't need Bond to take care of her. Or at least you get a really good sense of that during the first quarter of her presence in the film. And there's even a point she makes to him and she says, you know, look, I'm not like those other women. You're not going to get me like those others. I know your ways. I know your tricks. And guess what happens? Look, I have absolutely no problem with seeing Bond get the girl. That's part of who he is. That's part of what he does. But it's the way it's done in this movie that is so piss poor. In order for Bond to get the girl, they pretty much have to degrade an entire character, the Léa Seydoux character, who could have otherwise been not only a great Bond girl, but a great character. And they completely missed that opportunity because they wanted to force this bullshit, very undercooked romance. Their romance is the exact opposite of organic, which is so unfortunate considering that looking at the two characters, you would think that they'd be perfect for one another, but instead, no, it just doesn't work at all. So no, she has absolutely nothing on the Eva Green character from Casino Royale, who I thought was excellent. She had great banter with Bond, and their relationship seemed very organic outside of the last 20 minutes. One thing that I have not talked about is Daniel Craig as James Bond, and I cannot speak for the other James Bonds because I haven't seen them. But the thing about Daniel Craig is that he's always been able to bring a sense of complexity and a quiet sense, yet very smooth sense of charisma. Regardless of the film, I think he's always been really good to even great, and if this truly is his last James Bond film, then I say fair enough. It's not ideal, but it's fair. As for the villain played by Christoph Waltz, who is the head of Spectre, he is so incredibly underutilized in this film and is underwritten. And the amount of screen time that Christoph Waltz gets in the film, it might just barely scratch 10 minutes. He's hardly in the film, and I think it's a bit of a sin to get such an exceptional talent such as Christoph Waltz and just not use him. And when his character's motivations were revealed, I'm not bullshitting you, I was actually in denial because I was thinking, I'm like, he really did just say what I think he just said, right? I mean, I didn't hear that properly, but no, it's like, wow, you really didn't think this through, did you? And I'm talking about the writers here. And for those of you who hated the petroleum-filled fortress and Quantum of Solace, same shit happens here. Same shit happens. So now since I've gotten the bad out of the way, let's talk about some of the good things. And maybe to your surprise, I do have some good things to say about this film. In Spectre, there are a lot of entertaining action sequences that are well filmed by not Roger Deakins, but by Hoyt van Hoytema, the cinematographer for Interstellar. And although this film may not have the same amount of beauty like Skyfall, where there are a plethora of shots that you could easily take and frame and put onto your wall because they just look so beautiful, especially the shots in Scotland, this film still looks great because, like I said, it is done by Hoyt van Hoytema, who I believe was the star of Interstellar because he's such, he's a brilliant cinematographer. And although the action set pieces that are present in this film aren't entirely new, what makes them stand out to me, again, is how they are filmed, how they are directed, and how, for the most part, how they're edited. And it's these set pieces I believe to be at least worth the price of admission. As for any last statements, there is a side plot involving M, played by Ray Fiennes, and Q, played by Ben Whishaw, and it's them going up against this guy named C, played by Andrew Scott, who's not very good in the film in my opinion. And he's trying to get the whole 007 program taken down. I just didn't really feel like that really had a purpose in the film. It just seemed to sort of be there to give Ray Fiennes and Ben Whishaw something to do. And that's pretty much it. And last, but certainly not least, the way Spectre integrates Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall is lazy and it doesn't make much sense. Overall, I know it sounds like I don't really like this movie, and that's actually far from the truth because I do like this movie. I enjoyed the first half of the film. I really enjoyed it, in fact. It just gets to the second half, and that's when it takes a nosedive. Spectre's script is something that is simply not very good, and the fact that this ties back into Casino Royale and Skyfall, I think hurts this film even more, because I think if this were a standalone film, maybe everyone, including myself, would be just a little bit more accepting to this film. but unfortunately, that's just not the case. Unlike Casino Royale and Skyfall that go beyond just being mere action flicks to having something of true artistry, I would even go as far as to call them art films, Spectre is just an action flick. As for my rating, I've been very conflicted on what exactly I should give Spectre. At one time, I was thinking of a higher rating, but after giving it much thought, I just really can't go any higher. So I'm going to give Spectre a very strong 3 out of 5. As an action flick, the film works, but as a Bond film, as this new Bond that we have come to know, it kind of doesn't. If you're somebody who has seen Spectre, then do let me know your thoughts on it. And if you're somebody who has a favorite Bond film, let me know what that one is as well. Mine would be Skyfall, and as far as favorite song goes, mine would probably be between Skyfall and Diamonds Are Forever, both great tracks. As always, I'm Colin Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.
Golden words he will pour in your ear, but his lies can't disguise what you feel. For a golden girl knows when he's kissed her, it's the kiss of death from Mr. Goldfinger.